Good day, and welcome to Connecting with Kathleen. We're a local show that highlights nonprofits in our valley, bringing information of services that are available to you. And today my guest is Ali. He's the Development Director at YouthZone. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here finally.
Happy to have you. Ali, tell us a little bit about your mission.
So YouthZone's goal is to inspire hopeful youth, strong families, and safe communities. And that's a really broad mission. But at the end of the day, our goal is to do those things by minimizing their risky behaviors, delinquent behaviors, criminal behaviors, unsafe behaviors. So the vast majority of our clients come to us from the courts. They've received a ticket for some sort of crime. And then we also work with our partners in the community to kind of do some preventative and intervention work before they're that far down the path. So that involves schools, law enforcement agencies, sometimes families that know they need help, but they don't quite know how to get there.
Awesome. What's the typical age range of your clients?
So we work with typically 12 to 18.
Okay.
Sometimes we'll work with kids 10 and 11, but we like to partner with the schools first to ensure that they've kind of exhausted all their resources first. It's rare that we work with those kids, but it does happen. Yeah.
And what areas do you cover?
So we serve the entire 9th Judicial District of Colorado. So that's Pitkin County, Garfield County, and Rio Blanco County. So I think that's 11 communities that we work in. And we have a main office in Glenwood Springs and another main office in Rifle. Those are our two largest communities in which we serve people. And then we also have satellite offices in every other community in those counties. So here in Aspen, we have a little office at the courthouse where we meet with clients and we provide services there. In Basalt, we work with the Hope Center. In Carbondale, we've got one at the 3rd Street Center. Our beautiful main office in Glenwood is really cool, and I encourage everybody to come and check it out. And then our office in Rifle is, affectionately, I call it Grandma's house. You know, our organization's been around for almost 50 years now, and I think Grandma's house has been there for quite a bit of that. But it's a really unique spot that it does feel like home when you're there. So if you're in that neck of the woods, I encourage you to go check out the Rifle office. And then we work with Family Resource Center in Parachute to have an office there. And then we just partnered with the courts in Meeker to have an office at the court there, similar to Aspen. So really, really wide jurisdiction.
Yeah, huge area.
Yeah, some days I'll be in Silt later today. And there's sometimes there's days where people are driving from Basalt to Rangeley, and
you're all over the place.
Yeah, well, there's no shortage of kids and families with needs, intense needs.
That's
all
awesome.
over the place.
Now, what's the vision for YouthZone?
Well,
it's kind of the same as the mission?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I always just focus on hopeful youth, safe families.
I love that.
Yeah.
What are your outcomes? So
when the ultimate goal is to reduce those behaviors that we see, right? And so there's a few different ways that we measure it. We measure their recidivism rate. So are they still getting in trouble? And we also measure their completion rate. Are they doing all of the things that we've asked them to do on their contracts? Are they making use of all the services that we're offering? And then we also measure their performance in 5 kind of critical domains. So that's their alcohol use, drug use, optimism and problem solving, community engagement or delinquency, depending on where they are on the spectrum, and then their level of trauma. So when we first meet with them, we do kind of a 2-hour comprehensive assessment with the family, like the guardians, the youth, and one of our staff members. And there's a component where we kind of talk about the incident all together. We split the guardian and the youth up and kind of interview them separately. And then we have the youth do our survey, which measures those 5 domains. And based on the results of that survey, that's when we dictate the types of services that we provide.
So are
and-
families is it mandatory that they also work with you guys?
Completely optional. So even when they go to court, the court gives them the choice, right?
Okay.
They can be prosecuted, they can accept the charge, it goes on their record, and if they choose to later down the line, they can expunge the record when they become an adult. So that's one choice that they can make.
Okay.
The other choice is work with YouthZone, and if you complete all your requirements, you can get your charges dropped.
Awesome.
So it's rare that we get families that don't want to participate, but we also don't dangle it in front of them like a carrot, because that can also, there's a bit of, I don't know how to describe it, there's some trauma associated with that, right?
Absolutely.
You know, if we start saying things like, you're getting a really good deal, or, you know, you need to take advantage of this because it's
Right.
there's a bit of compliance that's forced on them. So we don't do that. It's all optional. But it's really rare that they don't take advantage of it. You know, it's all about their choice. Through the 3 to 6 months that we work with them, they're faced with choices along the way that they can continue doing what they're supposed to do,
Right.
or they can make a choice to not do it and potentially get sent back to court and
Right.
get prosecuted.
And
that
for
way.
teenagers, for a teenager to have a choice is huge, because typically they don't feel like they have any choices.
Yeah.
So I would imagine you have a good compliance rate with that.
Yeah.
because-
So we're at 93% compliance and 93% non-reoffense. So of the kids that work with us 3 to 6 months, the vast majority of them are completing everything they need to do, and they're staying out of trouble. So,
Awesome.
and then about 40% of them improve in at least one of those areas on the survey.
Great.
So, yeah, not only are they staying out of trouble, they're making improvements in their life in meaningful ways.
Yeah, so talk about the 5 areas and how you would program for improvement in those 5 areas.
Yeah, so in every community that we work in, the number one type of charge that we work with is drug and alcohol use. That's true in every single community. Sometimes it's marijuana above alcohol and vice versa, and sometimes it's some of the more uncommon drugs, but it's by and large possession and use of those
Okay.
2 substances. So all of our staff members are trained in at least some level of substance use education.
Excellent.
And then we have 3 staff members currently who are certified technicians, and I believe one of them is also a certified specialist. So for the kids that are in that realm,
Right.
we'll prescribe typically 3 to 6 sessions of substance use education.
Okay.
And we have several different levels. There's kind of a group setting. We have a virtual setting, and then for some of the more intense cases, we'll offer one-on-one substance education. So that's for kids that perhaps their usage is higher or different than the majority of the other kids, or they're not quite opening up in the same way that they would in a group.
Right.
So we give them a chance to do it privately.
I would imagine several of your cases, the children have drug and alcohol issues, so do their families.
Yeah.
So how do you intervene there?
Yeah, it's super common, and the assessment is designed to be 2 generational. So
Okay.
not only are we identifying these areas of need and strengths for the kids, we're identifying it for the parents too. We have a parent support program,
Nice.
and the goal there is to kind of offer at least one opportunity for them to kind of wrap their head around what's going on, provide resources in the community that they might not know about. And if we find that there's even more intense need for the parents, we can offer a kind of a recurring parent support, coaching.
Great.
And then we also just trained 2 staff in Craft, which is a kind of a community-based program where parents of kids who are using substances can talk to one another, share strategies, share stories, resources, it's similar to Al-Anon
Okay.
for people who are affected by someone else's use. So we have a lot of variety of options for the parents.
Right.
But you're completely correct. If there's substance use that kids are struggling with, sometimes the parents are struggling with that too. Sometimes it's financial issues. Sometimes there's generational trauma.
Right.
So some of those other areas, we contract with mental health providers. I think we have 5 or 6 on contract right now.
Oh, great.
And they can provide individual therapy, family therapy, mediation if they need to. And the goal there is to kind of break those cycles of generational trauma. And having those contracts allows us to kind of bypass insurance loophole,
Right.
the hoops that they have to jump through,
To get the treatment.
waiting periods, yeah. So we can immediately send them to these mental health providers that we have on contract. And then, yeah, community engagement. We mandate UPS.
Before we go there, how do you measure compliance of decreased use of drug and alcohol? Is it
Yeah, so we
self-report?
we don't do an abstinence based program. We do a harm reduction program.
Okay, great.
And a lot of the questions we ask them are just like, in the last 30 days, how often have you used drugs and alcohol? In the last year, how often have you? Do you have friends that are using drugs and alcohol? Are you ever in the car with someone who's using drugs and alcohol? And we just compare their pre-survey
Okay.
to the post-survey. And when
Awesome.
they're done with their program, they answer the same questions. And we just crunch the numbers to see if all of the answers that are related to substance use have improved or not.
Great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we for a while, and it is common for some of the most intense cases, we'll mandate urine analysis or random drug testing, or those are the 2 most common. That's for really very severe cases that typically coincide with violence.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk about the other programs.
So yeah, community engagement. We offer public service, so we facilitate their going out into the community with other nonprofits and volunteering. So we have coming up, I know there's a couple kids that are going to go to Basalt, the new shelter that they're building there, and they're going to help install blinds
Oh, nice.
that were donated by a local donor. In the past, we've done cleanup days, and some kids go to the Habitat for Humanity and clean and organize and accept
That's great.
donations. So the goal there is to just be able to get them into the community, giving back, noticing that there are things outside of them that can impact them.
Right. And I would imagine some of those kids are making connections with community members and potentially growing potential jobs or friendships or
Yeah.
people they know in the community that care about them.
Exactly, yeah. And that's kind of part of the optimism and problem solving is
Okay.
understanding that there are strategies and coping mechanisms that are not dangerous and detrimental for you.
Right.
That you can find fulfilling work, and you can enjoy the things that are available to you in your community. Yeah. And having a trusted adult that they can work with once a week
Huge.
makes a huge difference. Yeah, there's a lot of things that these kids tell our staff that they would never tell their own parents. They would never tell a school administrator. They're certainly not going to tell the police officers that.
Right.
But they can open up in a trusting and confidential way that really allows them to then take control of their choices.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we hit all 5 yet?
Yeah, I think so.
So what's the cost and number of services provided?
So the only cost that a client will incur out of their own pocket is the $200 assessment fee. And so that covers the cost of that 2-hour assessment at the very beginning. And we recently implemented a sliding scale. So we were finding that about half of our clients just couldn't pay.
Okay.
And we tried to be flexible with the timing of the payment, and if you could do $5 today and maybe $5 next week, and it was just kept coming back to we just don't have the money for it. So our sliding scale is voluntary. We collect a little bit of income data, and then it can potentially bring the fee down to zero. So that's the only out-of-pocket cost, and then YouthZone covers the rest of the cost. So
who funds YouthZone?
Well, I'll get to that.
Okay.
So it depending on the length of their contract, 3 to 6 months, can cost between $2,000 and $4,000. And we worked with over 500 kids last year.
Wow.
So it's a significant chunk of change.
It is.
The vast majority of that funding is from grants, a variety of different sources. So we get state money, and most of that is reimbursable. We provide the service, and then we're reimbursed for it up to a certain level.
Okay.
And that's through Department of Justice, through the state, Public Health and Environment. There's a variety of different state-level organizations that offer that sort of reimbursable grant.
Okay.
We get a lot of grants from our local counties and local municipalities. So most of them have some sort of yearly grant cycle that we apply to and receive funding. And then foundation grants too. So we have a lot of community foundations in our areas that will fund our work, and sometimes it's restrictive for a certain program or a certain type of person, and sometimes it's just general operating funds. And then we also have, we call them fee-for-service. So we have partnerships with some of the municipalities and some of the courts
Okay.
to do similar work that we do for the state. So we'll provide a service, and then those courts and municipalities will reimburse us up to a certain rate. And then finally, we solicit donations in our communities from businesses and individuals. Our budget this year is $2.4 million.
Sizable budget.
Yeah, and it's growing every year, and that's partly because the need is growing, so we're serving more clients every year, and the need for qualified and highly trained staff is also growing. So we expanded our benefits and salaries to be not only matching,
Right.
but competitive with other similar types of organizations in our area and in our state. So there's a rapidly growing budget. And our goals are kind of to lessen our reliance on those grants
Okay.
and increase the fee for service. So right now we're just being reimbursed for that assessment fee in some cases. We'd like to be able to be reimbursed for all of the other services that we provide. And then we're always working on growing our local donor base, right? So the vast majority of what I do is meeting with individuals, soliciting businesses, finding ways that they can benefit from our work, and we can continue to do that work.
So a child or youth going through your program, what are some of the things they would experience? They have the assessment.
Yep.
They might have some group. What other things?
Yeah, so we talked a lot about the substance classes.
Right.
I mentioned UPS, public service.
Right.
We also offer life skills classes. So we use a curriculum that kind of talks about anger management and planning for your future. Those are just kind of a couple examples of the modules that they use. Okay. And we've also done sort of more fun things like cooking dinner and making bracelets, and it's a good variety of legitimate social skills and life skills that functional adults need to know.
Exactly.
And other things that you need to know how to do, but they're not quite what you would consider educational, right?
Right, but I think, some of the, making bracelets or crafts, because these kids need to know how to fulfill their time without drugs or alcohol.
Exactly.
And how do you get enjoyment?
Exactly.
Do you do athletic outings or recreational?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of bikes. So we've got I think a dozen bikes, and we have a bunch of outdoor equipment. So we try to use those as much as we can. And we've toyed with the idea of doing, kind of an outdoor ed experience, kind of in the works behind the scenes.
Oh, that would be great.
Some other things that we put on their contracts include restorative justice.
Okay, talk
So
about that.
typically the justice system is very offender-centric. They bring the offender up in front of everyone. They talk about the crime that they committed. They talk about the punishment that they're going to get, and then they're sent on their merry way.
And punishment never works.
Right. So it's a very, that's the traditional system, right?
Okay.
Offender-centric and punitive.
Right.
Our focus in restorative justice is to bring in the victim so that they have a voice and a decision in the process moving forward in a productive and healthy way, and to focus less on a punitive outcome and more on something that is going to be useful for the offender in the future and for the victim. So that we do that a lot in sexual assault cases, trespassing, theft, harassment, any kind of intrapersonal crime. We'll often recommend restorative justice. It's optional. Again, both parties have to make the choice to do it together. Right. So if the victim doesn't want to engage in it, sometimes we'll find a surrogate, someone else that has experienced that in the past that can inform the offender about what it's like. So theft from a business, we might find a neighboring business that's experienced it before. Sexual assault, we might find another community member that's experienced that in the past.
So instead of being punished, they're going to get the victim's view. So what they did is real.
Yeah.
They can have a better understanding.
Yes. And a lot of times in the traditional justice system, there's restraining orders, there's no contact orders.
Right.
You're never going to see that person again. So what's stopping you from understanding? When I was in college, I was an adult, 19 or 20. I got in a fight. I received a ticket for the fight. And I was offered a restorative justice program. So not only did I have to take some life skills classes, anger management classes, I also had to demonstrate that I was civil with the other person that was involved in the fight. So we would get together and we'd take pictures of ourselves doing activities that we could then send back to the court and demonstrate like we're not.
So that's probably a great way to learn and develop empathy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and if our alternative was permanent record,
you just get angry.
And then the potential of doing it again,
right?
Because we didn't learn those skills, both of us realized that it was a very, very easy route to changing our trajectories. So.
And you said 93% success rate of not committing another crime.
Exactly. While they're working with us. Yep. And that's not to say that some kids will finish their program successfully and then immediately reoffend. That does happen quite a bit.
Okay. And can they come back into the program
Absolutely.
at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the alternative is, I get this question a lot, the alternative would be send them to detention. Maybe they go to jail, right? And for us, our view is that that is the level of support that they require. And they're either going to get that support in jail, which is not really support, or they're going to get it from us time and time again, right? So we have some kids that they come 5 or 6 times a year for different charges in different communities in different courts.
I can see that, and a lot of them don't have the support at home, and 3 to 6 months is not that long if this is generational issues, right? So it takes a long time to help them get through that.
And so I would say probably 15% of our clients are kind of those high flyers, and that's just the level of support that they're going to need. The rest of them, it's kind of a one and done. And that was how mine was.
Perfect.
I kind of learned the skills I needed, and I was able to have a successful path forward. So.
Okay. Well, in finishing today, anything else we need to know about YouthZone?
Oh man, there's so much you could know. I could stay here for hours talking about YouthZone. Let's see. I think the most important thing that I can say is that we are a really unique organization. There's no one else in the state that does court diversion in municipalities, in the county, and at district court. We're the only one that does that, and we're one of the only ones that's a nonprofit that does that. So we're a really unique organization, and we're always looking for support. So if any of your viewers are interested in volunteering, or if they'd like to make a donation, they can just reach out
Right.
to us.
And we'll have your number on the screen. So,
Perfect.
Ali, thank you for coming today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And you at home, thank you for joining us today at Connecting with Kathleen, and I'm wishing you health, healing, and happiness.